And I am excited, you guys. Mitch Jackson, Human.Social. Great guests today, you guys. Everyone join me in welcoming Jimmy Farris to the show. Jimmy, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks so much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this.
Oh, it's good to have you on. I'm looking forward to it also. And everyone out there that's watching on StreamYard, whether you're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, or over on my blog, I want you guys to share on social media. Share the show out. Jimmy's going to be dropping value bombs on how to be a high performer in your business and in your life. And then we're also carrying this conversation over to Clubhouse, which is an audio only platform, to dive deeper on the topics that you guys are interested in. My chat is actually blowing up with questions, Jimmy. So we're going to have a great show. If you guys have questions, definitely send them over. Let me see if I have my number here, to 949-577-7456. I will be doing my best, Jimmy. We got a lot of questions already that were submitted before the show to have Jimmy answer your questions, and we're going to have some fun today. Let me introduce Jimmy to everyone. Jimmy Farris understands what it means to dream big. He's a former Super Bowl champ and NFL veteran of 6 seasons. He played wide receivers for the 49ers, Patriots, Falcons, and Redskins before retiring in 2009, bringing him fast forward, you guys, to what he's doing today. He's a personal development trainer, speaker, and coach dedicated to equipping individuals and companies with tools to raise their performance, reach their goals, and create the best versions of themselves, basically to also become a Super Bowl champ in business and in life. And that's why Jimmy's on the show today. What in the world's new with you? Anything exciting happening, Jimmy?
Oh, man, it's so much exciting stuff. I was one of those people that I feel very fortunate that 2020 was a good year for me in terms of the development of myself personally and from a business perspective. And I was really, really fortunate and was able to kind of quickly pivot early on in February and March when COVID kind of first hit, and just grew tremendously just as a presenter, as a speaker, was able to grow my online presence. And ultimately, the first part of 2021 led me to connecting with guys like you. So things are good. I always try to stay positive and optimistic, and a lot of opportunities out there. And so I feel like 2021 is off to a good start. And I am expecting, as I always do, that this will be one of the best years. I like to set high expectations. And I find that when we set high expectations, more often than not, we hit them or we get damn close to them, right? And I'd rather do that than to, set the bar really low just so I don't feel disappointed.
Well, I wanted to have you on because I'm a firm believer in being proactive and making things happen, right? And I noticed when I met you over in Clubhouse and listened to what you had to say, we're going to talk about Clubhouse in a couple of minutes, you guys. I'm like, I need to share Jimmy's message with my audience of professionals and business owners and CEOs, because I was around Jimmy in 1987, 88 when Black Monday hit, the end of the 1999s when the first financial crisis hit and the market dropped, 2007, 2008, and now, with COVID-19 in 2020. This is a time of opportunity. This is a time to take action. And that's why I want Jimmy on today, to just share some ideas with you guys on how we can all, look through a different lens, have the right perspective, and move forward with our businesses with the right mindset. But before we do that, the elephant in the room, okay? Super Bowl champ, successful football career in high school, college, and in the pros. Let's start there just a little bit with respect to context, so that everyone kind of has a better understanding of, what is your makeup, what drives you each day. Talk to us a little bit about, why you started playing football and carried it through all the way to the pro level, and maybe what you learned from the gridiron that you've taken over into the business world.
Man, such a great question. So I'm one of those people that was very fortunate to truly be able to do what I loved, right? I think there's kind of two things that happen. You either do what you love or you have to learn to love what you do, right? And I was really fortunate that I feel like I just came out of the womb loving sports and competition, and particularly football. Something at a really young age just really drew me to it. Some of my first baby pictures when I was less than a year old, I'm sitting in the picture with a a little jammy on a little onesie with a number and a football on it, and I've got a football in my hand, right? And so I think I fell in love with that really early. And then one of the biggest things that happened for me, and I obviously didn't know it at the time, but when I was 10 years old in the 5th grade, on the first day of school, my 5th grade teacher passed out a little packet, one of those old Xerox packets. You remember those, the blue kind of purpley letters?
I do. I'm old enough to remember those. Absolutely.
And it was a packet that was titled All About You. And the first page of it it was almost like a questionnaire, and it had all these questions like, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite TV show? Your favorite song? And then down towards the bottom, it started asking, what was our secret wish? What was our goal in life? What's something that we most want to do in life? And I answered those questions by saying I wanted to be a pro football player. That was my goal in life. I actually still have that. Yes, I still have the original copy of that. My mom, God bless her, saved it in a box somewhere, and we found it like 5 years ago. So I actually use that as a part of my presentation when I do my live seminars. I show people that because I think it's so powerful that, at 10 years old, I was introduced to the concept of goal setting and writing it down, right? Proclaiming it to the world and to yourself that's what you want to do. And so I went about the course of, over the next, 13 years essentially of trying to achieve that goal. And I didn't really have any immediate mentors in my life that had done it, right? I wasn't surrounded by former or current NFL football players. My dad or my brother, neither of them played in the NFL. And so what I did was I immediately just dove into books. That's why I'm such a lover of books and such a big reader now. I was using books and the guys that I really looked up to, guys like Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Bo Jackson, was reading their books and getting all of this information about, how they went from being a kid like me that had a dream to do something great and then ultimately achieve it. And so I just went through those next 13 years trying to develop a mindset around achieving a big goal, trying to figure out what habits I was going to need to implement. I talk a lot now about who you need to become, right, in order to achieve something great. People always focus on what do you need to do. Through the process of those books and mentors I had, people really exposed me to the idea of who you need to become in order to achieve something great. And so I was able to use all that to be a high school all-state player, a college All-American. Then I went undrafted.
And you played multiple sports, right?
I did. So in high school, I played football, basketball, and track.
Is that a good thing? Are you glad?
I think it was great because and here's why I say that, because my nephews, who are all kind of high school and college age right now, all asked me the same thing. And I think it's great from a competitive standpoint. And it's also good for me. The way I did it was I used, as much as I loved playing basketball and high school basketball and running track, I did that knowing that those things were making me a better football player, right? So people talk about, oh, you don't want to get, distracted and diversify yourself too much. Well, I did those things that, wasn't 100% focused on football, obviously, when I'm playing basketball or running track. But the reason why I was doing them was because basketball helped me with my agility and quickness and timing, and track obviously helped me with my speed and strength. And so I was doing those things even in high school, knowing that it would make me a better football player.
I love that. I love that.
And as I continued through my college and pro career, I had other interests and other hobbies and things I was doing, but I always tried to find a way to bring it back to how can these extracurricular things that I'm doing ultimately, facilitate me becoming better at my true passion and what I really want to do. And so, when I went undrafted to the 49ers, this is a big part of my story and my platform. I was facing this new challenge again, going undrafted, kind of being an underdog, kind of a long shot to make the team. And one of my coaches said to me on the very, very first day, very first practice, I'd kind of failed miserably in this drill that we'd done. And I was worried that my first day
Undrafted, first day.
First day.
Pay attention, everybody.
Everything's got to go right. And I really kind of blew it in this drill. And I'm thinking, this dream, this goal I've been working for 10 years, I might have just blown it on my first day, right? I might have become an NFL football player and then lost it on the very first day. And he pulled me aside and kind of asked me a series of questions. And ultimately he said, well, look, we thought you were a good player in college. You're obviously good enough to be here. But what you need to understand is that what got you here won't keep you here. If you want to stay here and have a career with the 49ers and in the NFL, you're going to have to take everything to a new level. You're going to have to learn how to be a pro. And it was the first time I'd ever heard that phrase, first time I'd ever heard anybody articulate something that way. And he said, you're not an amateur anymore. He said, up here, MFers get paid to do this. That was specifically what he said. He said, so you got to learn how to be a pro, man, take everything to another level. And it really just clicked with me. I was like, man, I came in here with this mindset. Like, I've been working all these years. I put in all this work. I belong here. I deserve to be here. I'm good enough. I'm going to show these guys that I'm ready. And basically what he told me was like, you were good enough to get here, but to stay here, you're not ready. You're not good enough. And if you want to stay here, you got to take it to another level. And
that's brutal feedback, right?
Brutal. But you know what, Mitch? I think that this is a huge pillar in my platform now is it's what I call the pro mindset, right? Carol Dweck talks about it in the book Mindset, that growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. Success requires you to be able to look objectively in the mirror and ask yourself questions about, what are my true abilities? Where am I really at? How good am I? And to understand that no matter how good you are, you can always be better. No matter how much you think you know, there's always more to learn. There's always room to grow.
I love that.
So that really hit me in that moment when he told me that. And so I just went about this process after I'd already made it to the NFL. Then I went about the process of becoming a pro, right? Which I think a lot of people in their journey in work or their career, we don't know what it takes sometimes until we get there, right? You don't know what you don't know. And it takes getting there, getting around the people that are doing what you're trying to do at a really high level before you can understand what that's actually going to take for you to stay there and have real success there.
There's so much to unpack, Jimmy. I'm so glad that you're on the show. For those viewers just joining us, for everyone asking your questions, thank you. We've got Jimmy Farris, Super Bowl football player, motivational speaker, life skills in business coach. His company's Be a Pro. But Jimmy, you've said so much. I didn't want to interrupt you, and I do want to move forward. But let's go back just a little bit, because there's some things that you glanced over that's super important for all of us. Look, first of all, let's talk a little bit about your major in college, right? Mm-hmm. Which I glanced and I know what it is, but how you've been able to now come back full circle to that, the foundation that you built. That maybe, for me, it didn't seem that important to me when I was in college, but now I'm realizing, looking back, there was, that 5-year experience, Jimmy, and 4-year degree at the University of Arizona, I wouldn't have changed a thing, right? I took my time and did it my way. But looking back in life, these are things that I'm relying upon to help my clients and to get success in the courtroom. Talk to us a little bit about your degrees in college, other things you've learned in business, and how you've circled back to those things after your football career. I think that's important for people to hear.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something I actually struggled with initially right after I retired from the NFL. So I was a marketing and management degree major in college, got a double major. And to your point, at the time, I could have cared less, right? I mean, I was in school to be a football player. And the emphasis that I put on my studies was certainly I had a standard, right? I held myself to a standard. I wasn't going to be a guy that was just doing the bare minimum to pass and be eligible and get by. I did have goals around getting a degree and doing well in school, but it wasn't my main focus. And, unlike a lot of people, I didn't have to use my degrees, quote unquote, use it. I graduated in 2000, and I didn't actually start to try to put some of that to work until 2011, 2012. So a full 10 years after. And the business landscape, as it always does, had changed significantly from, when I was getting my marketing degree. Marketing was much different then in 98, 99, and 2000 than it is now. And so what I had to do was really, dive back into a lot of those principles, see where they had changed, understand how things had moved, and then try to re-educate myself. Really, really dive back into what those principles were and how, even more importantly, how I could apply them to what I was trying to do moving forward. And I struggled with that, and a lot of my struggle was around the fact that I was just not clear on what it was exactly that I wanted to do. Right. So how do you market yourself or a product if you're not really clear on what it is and what problem it solves?
Can I interrupt you real quick? Because that's a challenge I hear from a lot of my mastermind members. Been practicing law, Jimmy, for 34 years. I'm 63 years old, 62 years old, not 3 yet, 2. And I'm still not clear on what I want to do when I grow up. Maybe it's okay. It's okay to be flexible in your clarity as to what our goals are, right?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I just consider myself extremely fortunate that at that first goal that I had at a young age, I was able to say, this is what I want to do. Yes. And it stayed the same, right? But I don't expect any 18-year-old, 25-year-old, hell, 30-year-old to be able to say, for the rest of my life, I want to do X. And that's okay. What I typically try to advise people to do when we're going about a process of trying to get clarity around what they want to do is, I ask them to go through an exercise to really try to clearly articulate a vision for what they want their life to look like in the next 5 or 10 years.
Ooh, I love this.
Yes. And here's what I think is key, Mitch. Most people I've found, when we start talking about vision or goals or dreams, right? For some reason, we've been conditioned in society that most people dream or set goals in terms of what they think they can get, not what they truly want, but what they think they can get, right? Mm-hmm. I work with a lot of people who say, well, I want to make more money and have more success. And I say, okay, well, ideally, what do you want to make per year? What's an income goal you want? And maybe they're at 80 or 100 grand, and they'll say, man, if I could make, 150, 200,000, like, whew, that would be great. And I'm like, is that what you want, or is that just what you think you can get based on your current skill levels and abilities and situations? And what you find is most people will default to what they think is possible for them, and they set goals based on that. And if you really get them talking and you get them emotional, people will say, well, no, I mean, if I could really snap my fingers, I want, and they just start going off on this quality of life that they want and where they want to live and what they want their life to look like and the type of impact that they want to make. But they'll set their goals based on what they think they can get, right? They don't really believe that those things are possible. And so I say all that to say, from a clarity standpoint, I always instruct people, like, let's take off the what's possible hat and let's just put on the, if I knew I couldn't fail, if I knew anything was possible, then what would it be?
I love that.
People are usually able to get much closer to a clear vision about what they do want to do when they grow up. Once they start thinking outside of the realm of what's possible and in the realm of, if anything was possible, this is what it would be.
It seems like so many people out there self-limit. They don't give themselves permission to take things to the next step, and it doesn't make you a bad person. But I think it's just something that we're not giving ourselves the tools to move forward the way others see us being able to move forward towards. And we've got some interesting comments here about what you just said, Jimmy. Peter Gorell, who's out of Canada, a friend of mine, we're always putting limits on ourselves based on limited understanding of what our own potential is. And I see that all the time, especially with trial lawyers. And then it looks to me like you've got someone that's known you for a long time.
Yes, my guy, Jerry Kuykendall. Jerry, let me tell you something about Jerry. So we played.
So before you do,
I'm sorry.
Because there'll be a podcast episode, and I just want everyone to hear what's being put on screen so they can listen and put into context what you're going to share with us. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jimmy. I'm so sorry. But I just put up on screen, you guys, for the podcast listeners, Jerry put up a little note. I've known Jimmy since Camelot Elementary in his 5th grade. Wow, that is going way back. All the way from then through high school, he was always the biggest visionary and hardest worker any of us knew. It never slowed down. I love that, Jerry. Go ahead, Jimmy. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Man, first of all, Jerry, I appreciate that. Thank you for tuning into this. Yeah, Jerry and I, we go back, way back to the Lewiston, Idaho days. We played high school football together. And, Jerry was one of those guys who was he was a year younger than me in high school. So he played on a team that I played on that lost in the state championship. And then his senior year, they went on and won the state championship.
Nice.
Jerry's a guy who everything he is and what he's doing now is he's coaching around health and fitness. Dropped some amazing insights on Facebook. But Jerry's a guy who everything he is, he's worked for every single piece of it, right? Like he's
I love that.
Person who nothing was, you hear this a lot, but this is true of this guy. Nothing was given to him. Nothing was handed to him. He is who he is because he took the initiative and built himself into what he is. And I think that's huge. Those are a lot of stories floating around out there of people that are self-made and I did all this by myself, Jerry's a guy that really has made himself who he is through consistent action. And so much.
I love that.
Yeah.
I'll be connecting with you, Jerry, myself. I love connecting with people that do that. I was telling my son yesterday, Jimmy, that we were talking about some trials that are coming up, and we're not trying cases right now because of social distancing and COVID. So
Sure.
We've got a lot of Zoom mediations going on. But the two type of trial lawyers that worry me and concern me, and I feel like I need to bring my A game, are trial lawyers that are first generation trial lawyers who have had to do it themselves. Okay. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a silver spoon in their mouth, and they have a passion, a love, a drive, a dedication. And I respect that. And they're usually some of the best lawyers in the courtroom. The second level of trial lawyer are ex-high school and college and professional athletes. They know what it takes to get the job done. They have that drive, right, that you're sharing with us during today's show, and they take that into the courtroom. And those, it's hard to beat people like that just have this passion that you almost can't. I guess you can teach it, Jimmy, and maybe we can transition over to that. But it's just something that's ingrained inside of you, and you're not going to take no for an answer. You're not going to take an L when you can get a W. Right. For those, how about I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe for people that haven't had those challenges in life and things have come easy, and they're a 5th or 6th generation lawyer or accountant or whatever it might be. Are there any tricks of the trade that you can share to help remind us to stay focused, to help remind us to dig deep and focus in on that drive, to not take things for granted? I think that's maybe something a lot of us do, and we need to figure out how to deal with that.
Yeah. So I coach a lot around this idea of what I call objective reality, right? Which is to truly be objective about where you are, where you've come from, how you got there, and what the true current state of your situation is. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of us, most of us, what our truth is about ourselves can be different than what reality really is. I played with a lot of guys in my career that, quite frankly, thought they were a lot better than they were. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a lot of people in the world that think they're much better at what they do than they actually are. And the reason why that's a problem is because it only stops them from learning and growing and getting better and becoming what they truly could be, right? So I phrase it in this idea of truth versus fact, right? And so I'll take, for instance, my loan officers that are clients that'll say, "Man, I'm really good at what I do," and then we pull up the numbers and I say, the numbers don't really bear that out. I could sit here and tell you, Mitch, that I was one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And then you go look up my stats and you'll say, that doesn't really add up, So this
Right.
idea of being objective about who we really are, what our skills and what our competencies are. And I think to address kind of directly, I think part of that is acknowledging all of the people along the way that helped us get there, all of the situations that helped propel us to where we are. Right? It's kind of this idea of people that are born on third base and think they hit a triple, for instance.
Right.
Just acknowledging that can help center you and get you clear on who you are, what your skills and your competencies are, and then get you more clear on what steps you need to take to get where you're trying to go, because everybody's journey is different. Some people are very disciplined and they're extremely committed, but they struggle with vision. Some people are huge visionaries, but they have no commitment and no discipline, right? So we gotta be objective about where you're at, who you are, and where you're trying to go. And then you can start putting the steps in place, put the plan in place to make that happen.
I love that. That's so valuable. Maria Garcia said, check your reality. I love this because you cannot change what you don't know. This is a good starting point, Jimmy. That's fantastic. And we have a lot of questions I want to get to. B asked, is Be a Pro for individuals or professionals and companies? So why don't we transition, Jimmy, over into your Be a Pro company? What is it all about? What type of clients do you enjoy helping, and where do you see Be a Pro going in 2021 in this upside down COVID-19 world we live in? Great question, B. Thank you.
Yeah, very good question. So as you know, to be successful in any business, you have to put yourself in a very specific niche, and then subgroups of that, right? You got to be very focused and specific. And so for most of 2020 and where we're at now, we've been working primarily inside of private companies, mortgage companies, real estate companies. And my coaching has been specifically with loan officers, real estate agents. I've got a handful of CEOs or leaders of sales divisions and things like that. As we transition here, this is what I'm so excited about in 2021. As we transition here through the year, the book Be a Pro will be out first part of June. And
really?
Yes, yeah. So
awesome.
It's basically finished, and we're just kind of in those final editing and really making sure that it's exactly what it needs to be as impactful as we'd like it to be. And then we'll go through the book launch phase, and once that happens, then there'll be kind of a simultaneous release of some online training programs and some information and some programs that'll be available in the public sphere. That's when you'll start to see, public Facebook groups and mastermind groups and group coaching and things like that really start to materialize. So to answer that question specifically, yes, it is for individuals. Just not quite at the moment.
Well, and once again, being flexible, right? What does the market want? What does the market need? What are you comfortable with providing? You just made my day with your book. I was going to ask you, is there a book in the works, Jimmy? Because you got to share your story. You got to share this information with the rest of us. It's one of the best things I ever did was put a book together, because it's amazing how many people's lives you can touch while you're sleeping and that book's being read around the world. So good for you. And hopefully we can get you back on the show when the book comes out, right? Please. To talk about it and maybe, yeah. So a couple of quick follow-up questions, if you don't mind. Your company looks like somebody who's at the website talks about leadership, talking about failure, how to deal with failure, how to overcome failure. What is failure? Let's talk about failure a little bit. What are your thoughts on whether or not people fail? Can you fail? Is it simply an unexpected result? How do you coach up people or companies when things don't go their way? And unfortunately, that has been the case over the last year or so. So what tips can you share with us to move forward to deal with unexpected results?
Yeah, so I think the first thing to do is you have to you have to decide kind of what level the failure was, right? Was it a little hiccup, or was it like an extinction level event, right? Because failure is just not a universal idea. And sometimes what we do is we take a small failure and then we make it much worse than it was, right? We allow it to really throw us into a funk. We make it this extinction level event when in reality it was just a kind of a speed bump or a blip along the way. You hear ultra successful people talk all the time about how they failed their way to success, and it's hard for people to get their mind around that sometimes. But the key is again, it's all, this is a really simple concept. It's all just a matter of perspective, because if you're going to look at a failure as a negative and say, well, this is evidence that what I'm trying to do won't work, that I'm not good enough at it, and that it's probably just not for me, then that's your reality. That's what you're going to feel, right? It's this idea. I've heard Tony Robbins say multiple times that what you focus on is what you feel. And so if you're going to focus on it in that perspective, then that's what you're going to feel. If you see failure the way most super high performing world-class athletes and leaders see it, it's really nothing more than feedback, right? It's a way to gather feedback about what went wrong and what needs to change to be better in the future. I heard Kobe Bryant in an interview a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, say, I think he was on with Lewis Howes, and Lewis said, how do you deal with losing? And he said, I love it. He said, I love losing because it teaches me something. Every time we lose, that means something went wrong, and it teaches me an area where we can get better, or something we have to change, something that we can fix, right? And so I think, to kind of sum that up, two things. Really take the time to understand what the failure was. Was it something really catastrophic and potentially fatal, or was it just a speed bump on your way to your destination? And then ultimately maybe reframe the way you're looking at it, right? And let's look at it in the right context, which is the positive context, that it's feedback and it's just telling you areas where you need to get better, changes that you need to make in order to get better and ultimately get where you're trying to go and get the outcome that you're looking for.
I love that. We're talking with Jimmy Farris, Super Bowl champ, ex NFL football player, motivational speaker, life and business coach. You said take the time when something doesn't go your way to think about it and put it into perspective. I remember that interview Kobe had with Lewis, and I'll bet you dollars to donuts that if you were to ask Kobe when he's walking off the court after a loss, how he feels, what he thinks, he's going to give you a different answer than maybe 24 hours later.
That's right.
After digesting it and thinking, okay, what happened, with the guy I was covering, or what did our team, what can we do different to be better? And sometimes we need to be easy with ourselves, give ourselves a break. I always tell people, deflect, reflect, and select. Deflect what happens to you. You're a piece of Teflon. Deflect it, especially with trial lawyers who do everything right, Jimmy, and still lose the case. It's because there's 12 people they've never met before. They don't like lawyers. They don't want to be at the courtroom. They don't like jury duty. Something didn't work out and you lost the case. Deflect how that feels or what people are telling you. Reflect upon what the different options and outcomes could be, what you could have done different, what did people tell you, and then select how you respond to that. And once I learned how to do that, but Jimmy, it's always 24, 48 hours later.
Of course.
Don't talk to me those first couple of hours, because it's not a good situation to be around. But, it's like, be kind to yourself, be tough on issues, be kind to people. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I see a lot of people, they self-limit themselves and they're too hard on themselves. There's a book that was out. I don't know if you've read it. It's, what is it? Something like It's All Small Stuff.
Yeah, don't sweat the small stuff, because it's all small stuff.
Dude,
yeah.
that book, I remember reading it for the first time, and I'm like, oh my God, it's like, other than getting up each morning and breathing and living, everything else is small stuff, right? And once you get that mentality, it allows you to overcome sometimes what seem like insurmountable obstacles that the next day when the sun comes up, it's like, okay, I've got this. We'll deal with this.
And I've heard, different coaches and speakers kind of talk about that in the context of, picking a time in the future. It might be a week or a year or 5 years, and asking yourself, will this matter in 1 week, or will this matter in 1 year or 5 years, whatever the context is? And if the answer is no, then why are you worried about it today? Right.
Yeah.
Because we have this kind of this natural propensity to, like I said, make things much bigger issues than they actually are. And sometimes we worry ourselves about potential failures or what might happen, something that hasn't even happened. And we get all worked up about that, and we put ourselves in a negative state over something that hasn't even happened. Well, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? You know what? What if none of it goes wrong and everything goes right? That's a totally different state of physiology and mentally. And that's a state where you're much more creative. You're much more proactive, and you're much more emotionally charged to get the outcome that you want, versus kind of being in that doomsday worst case scenario. Look at all the bad things that can happen, and then you're just in a reactive state and a negative disposition. And so
good tips.
How you frame it really matters.
So look, here's the thing. I remember one of the top, he still is, criminal defense attorneys in Orange County, California, which is where I live and practice, you guys. He represents all the judges. You'll see him on high profile cases. It's stressful stuff. People's freedom depend on how he does in court. But I remember Paul pulling me aside when I was still a law clerk and telling me, Mitch, you're getting too stressed out. It's 11 o'clock at night. You need to go home. It'll be there in the morning. You need to treat this as a game. In other words, your heart's involved, you're giving it everything you've got, but you're putting too much additional stress weight on your shoulders. Take a step back, understand you're not pulling all the levers. You're not in control of what a jury's going to do. Right. You can simply, don't be so hard on yourself. Treat it as a game. I just told my daughter that. She's a second-year lawyer here in Los Angeles, Jimmy, and I want her to just kind of take a deep breath. You want to do your best. You want to be better than everybody else in the courtroom, but to get to that point, you need to give yourself a break, and whatever works for you. For me, it's treating things as a game. Let me bring up a comment we've got some old high school buddies joining us today. I don't know if you know Angelo Jackson. He's a legendary coach up in the Los Angeles area. But when I played at Cholla High School in Tucson, Arizona, Angelo was one of our running backs. He was I think he started on varsity as a sophomore as our fullback, and we've kept in touch over the years. But he is all about, teaching his kids, how to be good human beings, not just, in football, but also in life. And Angela, it's good to see you. Success and failure, it's all about belief. In Angelo's world, we must have a foundation. NFL Nation starts with Christ. And then he also talks about we lose or if we fail, it's a learning experience. And, you just gotta roll with it. And I do tell people, though, I'd like your comment on this, Jimmy. In social media right now, especially over the last 10 years, it's the whole fail often and fail fast mentality, right? Especially in tech in Silicon Valley. I'm of the belief, and maybe it's just because I'm a little bit older, is I don't mind people failing, but if you fail often and fast too much, you're going to fail yourself right out of business. I don't want to surround myself with expert witnesses who fail often and fast. What I tell people who I coach and in my mastermind is, if you fail, that's fine, but pivot, adjust, make changes, and then go at it again. Just don't fail at the same thing twice, if at all possible. Easier said than done. What are your thoughts on that as far as failing often and failing often, and or what tools can you share with us kind of to move forward so that when we do experience a failure, in addition to what you just shared with us, especially in 2021, the mindset, the physical aspect, how it makes us feel, what are some additional tools? Because I think this is something that a lot of people are struggling with. And then if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is just do some really quick back and forth with the questions that we're getting in.
Yeah. So look, ideally the goal would be to never fail. And And that comes from my athlete background, right? Like I wanted to catch every ball that was thrown to me, right? I wanted to do every play as perfectly as it could be done. No mistakes. Every coach wants to go through an entire game with no mistakes, right? Score every time we have the ball. Stop them every time they have the ball, right? That's the goal. The likelihood that you're going to go through life in business never failing is next to 0% chance. You're going to make it through life or through any career and never fail. But if we're just talking plainly, like that would be the goal. Okay. So this idea that you hear people talking about now that, fail fast and fail often, it's kind of gotten, it's trendy and it's catchy now. What they mean when they say that is don't be afraid to take a chance. Don't be afraid to take a risk. Don't be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone and go for something that you want or that you think is important simply because you're afraid of failure, right? I think that's the key message. It's not about failing often. It's about pressing forward and stepping out in the face of that fear of failure. And, once you do fail, because that will happen, to be able to, like we talked about before, use that feedback to get better and to avoid it the next time, right? First time, you make a mistake once, that's fine. We can deal with it. You make it twice, we're going to have a problem. You make it 3 times, same mistake 3 times, that could be fatal. And so the idea is not to fail as often as possible. The idea is to fail as little as possible, but to understand that when you do, it's okay as long as you use the feedback to get better and keep pushing forward.
Every single day, be proactive, you guys. I see so many professionals, and I'm using the metaphor, after something doesn't work out, Jimmy, they basically curl up in the corner in a ball and suck their thumb. And that doesn't help any of us, right? It doesn't help their careers. It doesn't help their families. It's okay to get up, dust yourself off, and go in for the next play. And that's why I told you, when I'm trying cases against other athletes, I understand. They understand that mentality, and it makes it challenging. It's challenging for me. B, I'm so glad to hear that you're enjoying the show. B Robinson says, it's so exciting to be on here with Bright Minds and Athletes. I am a current law student planning to tackle sports and entertainment law when she becomes a lawyer. And B, just want you to stay connected with me on all the platforms. My wife, Jimmy, who I met in law school, and we just celebrated Lisa's birthday yesterday. She's my partner in Jackson & Wilson. She's Wilson. Okay. Did work with as a sports attorney her first couple of years, you guys, and decided it wasn't for her. But if you want to reach out to me, Lee Steinberg's a friend of mine, and I can connect you guys with people that are in the industry to share with you, pull back the curtain and share with you exactly what's entailed to do what you want to do. I'm sure Jimmy would be happy to do the same thing. Jimmy, what are your thoughts with your experience with the world of sports agents, with where you see that's going maybe for someone like B, who's interested in pursuing a career like that? What are some things she might want to be doing now during her law school years? Yeah, relationships.
It's all about connection. People now, especially more than ever, when there's so much out there, there's so many options, there's so much fluff, there's so much social media and online presence. You got to sift through a lot of BS, right? A lot of people, we see that, on Clubhouse, where we're going to be after this, right? I mean, anybody can say scaled 3 businesses to 8 figures, right? And
right. They're all on Club. Apparently, they're all on Clubhouse. Jimmy.
I know. I'm like, man, there's more billionaires than I knew existed in Clubhouse. Yeah. Point is, people want to work with people that they trust, right? You want to work with people that you truly connect with and that you feel like understand what you're trying to do, and that you have a much deeper connection with than just the idea of what can you do for me, right? People think that athletes always just sign with the agent that can get the most money for them or get them the most deals. And sometimes that happens. But what you'll find is that, a college athlete that signs with an agent strictly for that, they'll be with that guy for 1 or 2 years. And then once they realize that personal connection is not there, they move on to somebody that they really connect with. So I say all that, B, to say that the best thing you can do now even is to start to develop relationships with the type of people that you would want to work with, number one. And number two, I would find some people in that field that are already doing that at a very high level, and see if you can connect with them. And I'm a huge proponent of this idea of modeling or copying genius, right? And what I mean by that is find people that are doing what you want to do the way that you want to do it, and model their behavior, model their actions, and start to figure out, how did these people make such deep, meaningful connections with their clients? What's their secret? What do they do differently than people that don't have that? And then see where you can implement some of those strategies into what you're doing. Because I feel like, especially with athletes, a lot of times young guys that get thrown a lot of money, they got a lot of things in their personal life being thrown at them. They want to work with people that they can trust and that they truly feel like have their best interests at heart. And if you can communicate to that to them and show up as that person, as somebody that they feel like they can trust and connect with, they'll be calling you. You won't have to go in search of any clients.
I love that. I love the fact you brought up relationships and networking. And what an opportunity right now with social media, with Clubhouse, with shows like this, you guys, where you can actually reach out and be proactive and maybe message Jimmy on Instagram and say, listen, is there anyone that you recommend I talk to? Or Mitch, what was the name of that agent you were talking about? This is the way you build relationships. This wasn't around when I started practicing law, Jimmy. This is like
50s and 60s.
Dude, this is like, yeah, almost that far back, but not quite. But you guys, this is like so easy, and that's why I like Clubhouse so far and so much right now. We're connecting with people over there, you guys, that are top of the top when it comes to CEOs, venture capitalists, entertainment, sports, whatever your interest is. If you're in the right rooms and you go about it the right way, right, using good people skills. Jimmy, right. People skills are critically important. That's why I'm such a big fan of Bob Berg, you guys, co-author of the Go Giver series of books. I think that's what it's about. Let's shotgun real quick, if you don't mind, maybe 3 or 4 quick questions just in the last 10 minutes. And listen, you guys, at 15 after the hour, so it's going to be 2:15 Eastern time, Jimmy and I, we're going to wrap this up at the top of the hour, but we're going to jump on Clubhouse and continue the Q&A. And we want you guys to pop on over. I've included the link on my Twitter feed to our Clubhouse room. I've also included the link in my Instagram profile. If you click on that, you're in Clubhouse, it'll take you straight over to our room, you guys. So we'll be doing that at 15 after the top of the hour. We're going to bounce around, no particular order. One question is, favorite moment in the NFL, and who was the best athlete that you've ever met? I guess in or out of football.
Ooh, yeah. Favorite moment in the NFL, I think is when I caught my first touchdown, and that was with the Falcons.
That'll do it right there.
It was the culmination of it was just everything I'd worked for just came together, and it was like,
what was the route? What was the play?
It was a stutter go. So it was like a 12-yard curl stutter, and then went to the fade. And we were down in the game. It was late in the fourth quarter, and it brought us back within like 2 points, and we had a chance to win the game. And it was a period where I'd gotten an opportunity to play because of an injury, and so I kind of got thrown in. And it was my first real opportunity to prove, like, even though I'd been on teams and been playing special teams and stuff, I wanted to prove that I could play as a receiver on that stage and on that level. And I got that opportunity, and I was able to take advantage of it. And so just a really fulfilling moment. The second part of that question, there's 2 answers, right? And the 2 answers are Terrell Owens and Mike Vick. My rookie year in San Francisco, the first day when Terrell Owens walked into the locker room, I couldn't stop staring at him, honestly. It was kind of like a fanboy moment. I was just like, wow, and my first thought was, if this is what an NFL wide receiver looks like, I'm in trouble. Like, I'm going home today, right? I mean, this dude is like 6'3", 225, just shredded. I mean, body just carved out of marble. Unbelievable player. And Mike Vick is the second guy. And the reason why I say Mike Vick, I mean, the obvious reasons, he's super fast and all this type of stuff. Mike did something in practice every week that all of us collectively, a bunch of other pro athletes and pro football players would look around at each other and say, did you see what he just did? Like, can you believe what he just, I mean, just blew your mind in practice, just doing simple things. And so those two guys stand out to me for sure.
Awesome. A couple other questions. Be asked, do you reside in Atlanta? So if people want to reach out and connect with you, whether it's personally to interview you or maybe, to retain your services as a consultant and coach, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yep. So I do live in Atlanta. Best way is to get me on all socials at Jimmy Farris, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Send me a private message and we'll set up a call. Would love any of those conversations, and any way that I can help or assist anybody in whatever you're trying to do. If you want to be better, and get to a different level than where you are, let's talk. I'm in.
I love that. You guys, and also reach out to me if you have any challenges. I'll include all of these contact information in the show notes of today's show and in the podcast version of today's show. Leadership skills in quarterbacks. Can you share with us some of the best leadership skills you've seen in the huddle? If you can name the quarterback, great. Excuse me for looking away. I'm just trying to paraphrase here. If you can name the quarterback, great. And why were his skills so good? Under pressure, fourth quarter, in the huddle.
Yeah. So I think leadership, people always want to put that in just like one box, right? Like, here's leadership, here's what it is, and here's what great leaders do. And it's so much bigger than that. And you require so much more context around what makes a leader great in certain situations. And some of the best leaders as quarterbacks that I were around were guys, number one, that were believable. And what I mean by that is they had credibility. So when they were asking something of you, you didn't immediately think, to ask them, well, are you doing that yourself? Right. So it's people who are practicing what they're preaching. Tom Brady comes to mind on that. A guy named Mark Brunell that I played with in Washington comes to mind. Guys that you knew that whatever they were asking you to do, they were willing to do, or they were doing themselves. And I think that one of the second biggest traits on that, it's never what actually happens in the moment. Right. You see Tom Brady engineer these great comebacks and do these great things. But to me, what makes those guys great leaders is who they are allows them to put on those type of great performances. Right. And so for me, the leadership aspect of a Tom Brady or a Mark Brunell was guys that were unaffected by the emotions in the moment. Right. Tom Brady was stone cold at all times. He was able to compartmentalize his emotions, forget about what happened on the last play or the last series or what might be happening throughout the whole game. Every play was its own, specific box, and all we had to do was execute that play. And he was able to compartmentalize his emotions and just stay stone cold in the moment. And why I'm saying that's a leadership skill is because guess what everybody else around him was able to do when he was doing that?
They're watching him, right?
We were able to do that because you look at Tom and you're like, oh shit, he's cool as a cucumber. He's locked in. So no reason for me to be emotional or be flustered. Like, you look to that guy and you see his demeanor and then you match and mirror his demeanor. It kind of happens as a natural consequence. And so, yeah, that cool under pressure, I think is kind of the cliche way that we talk about that. That is a leadership skill in and of itself, and very important in a quarterback in particular.
Did you observe them developing these traits based upon how they go about preparing and in practice, and it carries over into the game? Or do you think this is something that they were just born with and you watched it happen live in the fourth quarter?
Yeah. So again, the big picture, I'm firmly believe that leaders are made, right? I think some of us are born with with certain abilities, personalities that allow us to communicate and things like that. But ultimately, leaders are made, and they're made through their life experiences and things that have happened along the way. Most of those guys that I was around that were able to exhibit those type of qualities, they are like that all the time, right? And that's not to say that guys aren't ever emotional. Tom had moments in practice where he got pissed off and things weren't going right and he got frustrated. But again, it's the ability to take control of the situation and your emotions when it matters, right? And when it matters the most. And those guys had that ability, and they had it because they were conscious of it. It was an awareness that this is a moment where I need to be in control of my emotions, right? Sometimes just those conversations we have with ourselves change the whole game. And you can take it into a relationship, right? You start to get into it with your wife or your spouse. Just being consciously aware and saying to yourself, this is a moment where I need to keep my cool and watch the tone of my voice and the emotion that I'm emitting. Boom. That's it. As soon as you identify that and tell yourself that, you can do it, right? It doesn't necessarily just have to happen unconsciously. And those type of guys are able to know in the moment, this is how I need to be. And by identifying how and who you need to be, you can then go about the process of doing that and being that.
For all the trial lawyers watching both live and recorded, you guys, listen to the last 10 minutes, because when you've got a team in the courtroom with you and your cross-examination of a witness doesn't go the way you want it to, your opening statement doesn't go the way you want it to, they're all watching you. You need to be that Tom Brady, right? You need to be Mark in the courtroom so that it's just one of many pieces of your trial litigation puzzle. That was gold, Jimmy. Really appreciate it. For people watching, for people listening, websites, phone numbers, whatever you're comfortable with sharing. If someone wants to reach out, what's your website?
Yeah, so jimmyfarris.com, Farris. jimmyfarris.com is the website. You can drop an email and get on our email list, and we'll have various things over the course of the next weeks and months that we'll send out to you. Again, you can find me on all socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Jimmy Farris, YouTube as well. Follow me, interact with me, shoot me a DM. This is what I truly, that's why I love this so much, because it doesn't feel like work.
Exactly.
This is the type of stuff I just like to do. So none of this feels like work. Coaching and speaking and training, it doesn't feel like work. It's what I love to do. So I'd love to interact with people. Shoot me a DM. We can set up a call and move forward from there.
Jimmy, this has been fantastic. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you very much. Your words of wisdom, I think, are going to carry forward a lot of us in 2021. And for those of you watching, if you want to jump over to Clubhouse in about 15 minutes or so and continue the conversation, come up on stage and talk to Jimmy or me about how I'm doing things in the courtroom, how Jimmy's doing things virtually presenting now, or with his live or online clients. That's where we're going to be for a little while. And for those of you joining us, you guys, thanks for being here today. I love doing this. It does not feel like work, as Jimmy just said, and it's been a pleasure. So Jimmy, thanks. We appreciate it. Everybody out there, be a pro. Get Jimmy's book when it comes out. And between now and then, enjoy the journey and do your best to try to make each day a masterpiece. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Mitch.
Bye-bye.